day. You never met me, but I was Lieutenant Hyde's gunner. I was closest to him in the vehicle during the incident. We both got medical evacuation on the same chopper. I just want to show my appreciation. When I could write back, Leroy and I messaged back and forth for a couple of hours. I learned a lot that night. New information that I had not known for 8 years. I cannot share those details, some of them far too vivid. Leroy kept apologizing for saying too much, and I kept telling him not to worry. I wanted him to tell me everything. I needed to hear and know everything about Daniel's last moments. Some details which I had to probe out of this poor guy who had been bottled up for 8 years and hadn't told anyone anything. I asked Leroy why it took so long for him to reach out to me, and he responded, "Since Daniel was an officer, I figured I had no right to reach out. I needed to stay in my lane. But when I saw a post from you on Facebook, I just had to reach out and show my appreciation for your son. He saved my life. I hope that doesn't sound messed up. And talking to you has relieved some pressure off my mind. I didn't know your son for too long. He was our new lieutenant. But what I did know, he was humble. And not like officers fresh out of school who think they know everything. He took advice and listened to soldiers and never used his rank to get respect. It was an honor being his gunner because he was such a cool guy." Now you can imagine how this might feel for a mother to hear these things on Mother's Day, 8 years after her son died. And this is what I love about Facebook. At one point, I asked Leroy if he wanted me to just call him. We'd been messaging back and forth for a couple of hours, and he said, "I don't want to get emotional while talking to you, so messaging is better for me." So Leroy continued, "I had a lot of respect for your son. He was different. He was one of the best leaders I had the privilege to serve with. I don't like talking about the day the incident occurred. It still gives me nightmares. If it wasn't for your son, I'd probably be dead too. I regret I wasn't able to protect him." Leroy said they were talking about something right before it happened, and he couldn't remember what they were talking about. I immediately got so excited because I knew I could help him remember. You see, I had done very extensive research in order for all the details to be correct in my book. So I had spoken to the other people in the vehicle that day, and I knew this. I told Leroy the other guys said they were asking Daniel questions about West Point and how he made the decision to go there. Leroy messaged me back instantly, "Oh my God, that was it." I have been laying awake so many nights trying to remember what we were talking about. Even through messaging, I could sense Leroy's great relief after 8 years to finally have that memory back. It was one of the best feelings I've ever had to have been able to help him with that. Leroy continued, "After witnessing Daniel's death and my great respect for him, I wanted to be a better man, a better person, a better husband and father." Leroy could see Daniel's sacrifice being better honored by he himself living a better life. And I suppose if Daniel were standing here right now, he would encourage all of us to live a better life. To be thankful for all service people, our military, police, and firefighters, all who are willing to stand in front and sacrifice themselves for us so that we may have our life and so that we could live that life honorably and by being kind. In Daniel's high school graduation speech to his fellow classmates, he closed with this quote, "Learn as if you were to live forever, live as if you were to die tomorrow." And Daniel was dead 6 years later. Retired Lieutenant General Robert Caslin Jr. is the 2019 recipient of the NCAA's highest honor, the Theodore Roosevelt Award. General Caslin was at West Point during Daniel's time there and was deployed at the same time Daniel's unit was deployed. So General Caslin knew Daniel pretty well. In an article about his award, General Caslin said this, regarding the reality of combat. Right after he was killed, I remember holding him in my arms and looking at him. The emotion of losing somebody in combat, somebody who's your buddy, someone with such incredible potential. This is the sacrifice America is giving for the protection of our citizens. Dan Hyde can stand in the gap so Americans can live life as they normally do without even a care or worry that they are not going to wake up in the morning. One more time. On January 1st, this year, 2 months ago, and 1 month after Brian and Megan asked me to come and speak to you this evening, sorry, I'm choking on my water, and 10 years after Daniel died, I received this message. Mrs. Hyde, my name is Thorpe Fasser, and I served with your son during his time in Iraq. Over the past 2 days, I have read the book you have written about his incredible life. It's a beautiful and well-written book. I've put this off for so long. I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm hiding from it or running from it. Maybe it's because compared to the others in my unit, I had very little interaction with your son, and I felt like their grief took priority over mine. I knew Lieutenant Hyde fleetingly. I met him twice, but only once when he was aware of it. I was heading home for leave, hoping to make it home in time to see my first child born. The night before, I was shaving in the shared restroom when your son came in. He was new to the unit, and I didn't know who he was. He was in PT uniform with no rank. We greeted each other and we started talking. I can't remember about what, just trivial things. However, I do remember laughing a lot and thinking this new guy was going to fit right in. Only after I had wrapped up in the restroom did he mention his name and rank. I knew then that leadership ran in his blood. For many officers, this kind of interaction would have remained formal, but not for him. I felt like I was talking to a friend. I didn't realize then how much I would replay that conversation in my head in the weeks to come. I went on leave, and upon arrival back in Iraq, I was immediately told to gear up. We had wounded, and we needed to escort them back to the patrol base. I don't remember much after that. It was a blur, and things happened quickly. When the news of his death came out, we were devastated. It was painful. I barely knew your son, but he was a brother in arms, and that's a bond that transcends blood. I can't imagine your pain. I can't relate to your pain, but most of all, I wish you never had to endure this pain. Your book helped me in a way I can't explain. Over my military career, I lost many friends to combat, but your son's loss bothers me the most. It bothers me because I will always wonder what could have been, what I could have learned from him, and how he could have helped me to grow. It's something I will never know. Well, I thought I would never know. And then I read your book and realized that even in the short time I knew him, he taught me many things. He taught me to appreciate those around me and to live life with passion and love. He taught me that sacrifice, while painful, is noble. He taught me to be a better person and to live life to the fullest without saying a single word. He reminds me every day to make my life mean something in honor of him and those other friends I've lost. My second son, born roughly a year after Daniel's death, is named Chase Daniel Fasser. His middle name is in remembrance of your son. Thank you. Thank you for raising an incredible son. And thank you for writing the book about his life. Thank you for helping me to heal. And there it is. The reason for my writing, the reason Daniel spoke to Mrs. Pla, so that still, 10 years later, I could hear that it helped another soldier heal, just as Daniel knew it would. The most valuable lesson I've learned as a result of Daniel's death is that inevitably we are all going to die. And very soon people will stop talking about the way you died. But if you give people enough ammunition, they may never stop talking about the way you lived. Thank you. I will say thank you for Daniel. He deserves that standing ovation, so I'll thank you for him and on his behalf. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. That means so much.
Okay, so Glenda has graciously agreed to do a few Q&A, questions and answers. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, we have a couple mics in the room, so just raise your hand.
And don't be shy.
Don't be shy. What was that? You got thorough.
What's that? I know. I keep looking at these pictures and thinking, oh, that's Nico and Andrea, and that's his first day of kindergarten. And she buzzed over before work because she had to see her boy. So sweet. All right, you guys.
Okay.
You're just dying to have dessert, right? Or something. That's such a good question. I was just telling this Brogan family over here that I need to write a sequel because I feel like at the end of my book, and you'll know after you read it, that I left Andrea hanging because she really was struggling and she wasn't really coming around yet. But she's doing so well, and I'm so happy I had the opportunity to tell everyone now that she's phenomenal and an amazing, amazing help. She surprises me all the time with she wrote me a little text today and said good luck today, and sometimes there were times, I didn't go into a lot of detail because I thought if she ever hears this recorded, she doesn't like attention, and she never has liked it on herself, and she was never once envious or jealous of her brother. She knew he was special, and she was proud of him like we were, and she never ever felt envious of all the attention he got. So as soon as he died, of course, we were like this, I mean me especially, and she just was like, I can't, this has never happened in my life, so I can't do it now. I can't get all that attention. So there were times that I would tell her an event was going to happen and she would act like she didn't even hear me or just completely ignore me, and then something else would come along 3 months later and I'd think, okay, I'm just not going to mention it to her, and then she'd find out from somebody else it was happening and she'd get mad that I didn't tell her. It was just a struggle, and I just knew she was raging, but you can just tell your kid you're there, but until they're ready to get well, they're just not going to get well. So that little boy that you saw with her is what did it. She changed her focus completely and started opening up her heart to a little person that needed her, and it did amazing things.
I would like to...
the answer to that question is, so yes, I do need to write another book, but there's so many little miraculous things that have happened, and I really do need to write another book, so I might take that on one of these days.
I just want to say thank you for speaking. And I have so much respect for all soldiers, the men and women that have fought and lost up to their lives here fighting for our freedom. But I also admire your courage to get up there and speak.
Thank you.
And when I look at courage like that, it makes me realize that, I have a lot I'm trying to accomplish, and as we all are trying to accomplish a lot of things, and sometimes it's fear that holds us back and hurdles and barriers, but for you to get up there and speak, it makes me want to put on my big boy pants and keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
I probably don't need a So you mentioned about Sorg and just being contacted by him 10 years after Daniel died. And he said leaving in the restaurant was only the first time that he's met your son or saw your son. What was the second?
So He was, if you remember when I said he was told immediately after he got back from his R&R to get dressed, and they had wounded to escort, so that was his job, to escort this kid that he'd met one time, this officer that he'd met one time, to escort him back to the patrol base. And Daniel didn't die right away. He died about 45 minutes after he was hit. So his heart was still beating, although he wasn't responsive to anything. But so Thorpe was one of the people willing him to live and holding his hand and saying, "We know you can do this." Pretty special guy. And I don't know if any of you caught this, but I mentioned only the first 7 names, even though I said there were 8 namesakes. But I literally just found out about this kid. He's actually the oldest namesake. His little boy just turned 8. But I just found out about him a month ago. But he's really the first one that was born. Amazing, incredible. 10 years later, I hear for the first time. Yes. Yes, number 13, you're on, buddy.
Okay, so as far as my part, like, I don't really have a question for you, but like, so I'm a student at Down, I'm a junior at Down, and so I'm walking on the campus a lot, and every day when I'm going to lunch, I pass as I'm going like there on campus. I go in the gym frequently, see his uniform, his number 13 jersey there hanging up, and I'm like, okay, he must have been a pretty good player, he must have done something good to get his number retired out there. And then, as I told you before, I'm not a person really to read a lot of books. I don't like reading, and so when Mr. Albritton gives us time to read, I'll read anything but the books he gives us to read. And then this book came out, and what I do is I usually read the first few pages and then decide if I want to keep reading, and definitely I was moved, and I kept reading. And in fact, I think it was the first time our whole class read the book, and it usually takes about 2 weeks expected. It turns into like a month or 2 to finish the book, but this one took like a week and a half for all of us to finish the book. And I think what's really moving about that is even the students in the classroom, you can see even ones who didn't really care, you can start seeing glimpses that they actually care, and they were moved because of your son in the book. We could feel his presence in the classroom. So Mr. Albritton was there, and he said, "Yeah, guys, I'm going to stop you guys reading." He goes, "It's so quiet." And then he said, he goes, years ago, Miss Glenda Hyde would walk by, and she would stop in, and, "Oh, it's so good to see my students reading the book," So a lot of the students were, he started doing demonstrations on how he would walk by his class.
That must have been good to watch.
Yeah. But yeah, I just think it's really cool, and it's more than just a book, and I think, students who've gone to Downey are definitely one move just because it's like right there. You start reading names like Miss Law, and start seeing pictures of all the Downey students out there when his casset's been driven by. I think there's something impactful about that. So I know he's definitely made me want to be more motivated as long as other students. And if our whole class was here, I think they'd tell you the same thing. But on behalf of my class and Mr. Albritton, they're very proud of who your son has become, and
Thank
just
you.
knowing he's still here with us.
I just can't tell you what that would mean to Daniel, because he just was driven to be a good example to people. He told me one time that he never wanted to disappoint one person in his life. This is when he was, maybe, 16 or 17. Maybe he was already at West Point, I don't know. And I was like, "Daniel, get real. You're going to make somebody mad. You're going to disappoint somebody. Like, get over it, But honestly, I'm not sure he ever did. And maybe that's why God took him at 24. But he just, he was really, really driven to always be helpful and kind and just motivate people to be the best they could be. And so here's an example of somebody that's, Mr. Albritton has been having, he's a Downey teacher as well, and he has been having his kids read the book for some time. Oh, you can't hear me? Mr. Albritton's a teacher at Downey also, and he's been having groups of students read the book since I left and since it's been published. And I usually hear from maybe one person, out of that group, just to say that their kid read the book and they were very motivated and moved by it. And I used to tell people when I taught self-defense, if in my life teaching a self-defense class helps one person get away from a bad situation, then my life was totally worth it helping in that. Maybe I teach 27 self-defense classes and only one person's life gets saved, totally worth it. So that's how we feel every time somebody says, Daniel's been gone for so long, but we still feel motivated by what he did. It's really an incredible thing to hear. Super proud mom moment. Mr. Albritton told me one year that I guess when it was time to stop reading the book or whatever, that one of the girls in the class stole the book because she hadn't gotten it done in time, and she was so determined to finish it. So she stole it, but that's okay because I think she turned it back. I think she gave it back to him after she was done reading it. So stolen for a good reason. All okay.
Have you met all of the young men that were with Daniel that day?
You know what? Who asked that? Cheryl. I thought I had, which is why I was so surprised when the gunner contacted me, because right after he died, or very soon, I told Nick, the guy that took over, I want to talk to everybody that was in the car with him. And of course then I was in a fog and don't remember or didn't realize everything, but it was super important to me because I was real curious about what he was talking about or what were his thoughts right before he died. So I thought I had contacted everybody. I talked to the driver, talked to the couple other guys, and it's real strange, but so I think there's 5 guys in each vehicle. There were 3 vehicles that day. And 2 of the guys in the vehicle said that other than talking to me, one came and met us in Vegas one year, and another one, not sure, but there's 3 people all in the vehicle that day, and they've all told us that they don't talk about it with anybody else. They've never said a word about it since it happened. So this is a thing that breaks my heart. I don't know if people even know there's a war going on, but there still is a war going on, and there's still people getting killed. And the soldiers that have to stay back and bury this down, and I'm looking at this lady that I just met for the first time. Allie, will you stand up? This is a friend of Daniel. She graduated from West Point a year before Daniel, and was in Iraq with him. And this is her little boy, Daniel. Oh my God, you did not tell me that the other day. That is not something you can drop on me right now. Oh. She said, she met us at the cemetery on the 7th, and she said, there's so many things I want to tell you, but she is another person that it's just, these people have to bury all the stuff that happens down and go back to work the next day. And they're not allowed to be emotional about it because they have people to take care of, and they're not allowed to think about it because that could cost somebody their life. So they come back, and that's why our soldiers hurt when they come back, and they're not all in good shape. And I think a lot of them that look like they're in good shape still probably aren't. But anyways, it was such a pleasure meeting her, and for the very first time, she said that there were some things that she'd love to tell me. So we're going to get an email, and we're going to do that, especially since I need to add your son to my list. She told me she was bringing her son Daniel. She has twins. And I met them just one time on the 7th at the cemetery, and then we went to lunch with another of Daniel's officer friends that came from LA just to see Daniel and introduce his namesake, Owen Daniel, to Daniel. That little boy